Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ranking Member Scott, for holding this important hearing today, and thank you to all of our witnesses for being here. And I'll just start my comments out by maybe acknowledging what I've heard a little bit from the folks on the other side of the aisle here, and I will just simply say, I hear you. And one party in this country doesn't own compassion, and one party in this country doesn't own the willingness to give the shirt off your back for your neighbors that are in need. I think that is something that we all can agree that we can work together on and that we can hold as a common value. And I will just say that we can do that, but we can also talk about serious things like program integrity and making sure that we are getting the best bang for the buck, that the taxpayers' dollars are going to those most vulnerable people. That should be something, again, that we on both sides of the aisle could agree on. So I think there is some common ground here, and it's so important that we keep this conversation going and that we keep the bipartisan nature of a Farm Bill coalition intact, because it's going to take that to get this done. In 2001, we spent $17 billion on SNAP. This year, SNAP is projected to cost taxpayers $124 billion, an increase of over 700%. Meanwhile, food insecurity in this country has remained largely unchanged. So I think that's that's some data that's important for us to know, that it is not because of a lack of investment. We have definitely put our money where our mouth is in this country. So as we explore the conversation in regards to program integrity and trying to make sure that we understand, are we getting the dollars to those that are in the most need? A couple things that come to mind that I need maybe just to better understand. So I'll start with Ms. Royal. Americans in rural communities I represent, again, like I've said, would clearly give the shirt off their back to help a neighbor in need. And really our Southern Minnesota philosophy is, we're all about giving folks a hand up, not just a handout. How do we help people get to that next level of life? And we're willing to do it. So in your testimony today, you referenced the rates of fraud in SNAP. But you also mentioned a little bit about the error rate. And I just want to maybe have you give us a quick view of what's error rate versus fraud. If you could do that, Ms. Royal.
Error rate comes from quality control reviews that are done, are mandated and done by each state. And it checks the accuracy of benefits that are issued by the state. The fraud rate is the amount of fraud that occurs in the program. The error rate is calculated and reported, but the fraud rate is really difficult to put your finger on because there are so many different elements that make up that rate. So states do report quarterly on our fraud, but they use a form, it's the 366B form. It's antiquated, it's inaccurate. It provides just not even a snapshot, but an excerpt of information that states have to deal with in regards to fraud.
Thank you for that. And, just I'm a simple farmer from Southern Minnesota. Error rate, fraud rate, to me, it all is dollars that aren't going to where we said we want them to go. And that's to help the most vulnerable people in this country, whether it's error rate or fraud rate. And I think it's something that we have to, again, this is it should be a bipartisan concern and an issue. And if we're focused on getting dollars to the most vulnerable, this is a way to make sure we can get more money to the most vulnerable. So I appreciate helping me understand that a little bit better. Dr. Rashidi, in your testimony, you reflected on waivers, something that has long seen strong support from one side and intense opposition from the other side. Well, I'm sure there'll be further debate on this. I'd like to take a step back and talk about the role of the states. This is an administered program by the states, and it's such an important part of this. So this administration reissued an Obama-era guidance that reiterated the importance of states screening recipients for the able-bodied adult work requirements. When a state is waived, recipients lose a touch point, one that could have connected them to other services or other supports, well beyond work. Would you share your thoughts on this issue, Dr. Rashidi?
Yes, thank you for the question. And I think this is an important point because the problem with SNAP related to employment is not related to the individuals. The problem is related to the program and the way the program is set up. I interacted with hundreds of SNAP participants throughout my tenure as Deputy Commissioner in New York City. The vast majority of them want to work, but they are frustrated that this program holds them back. And so by waiving work requirements, it's exactly what you said. You're removing a touch point. I don't think it's at all compassionate to send government checks to households and that leaves them jobless and in poor health and not have a touch point with a government worker who is trying to help them. And I think that the approach of ignoring the issues in the households and just sending them checks in the name of reducing hunger is not the right approach.
Gentleman's time has expired. I seek unanimous consent.